The great hall of the Galactic Council shook with angry voices as Admiral Kexathara stepped forward. His tall alien form cast dark shadows across the marble floor, while his 6 eyes glowed with cold fury. Behind him stood dozens of other alien commanders, each representing worlds that had fallen to his mighty fleet. The human delegation sat at a small table near the back, looking tiny compared to the massive creatures around them. Ambassador Helen Martinez felt her heart racing as she watched the alien admiral raise his clawed hand for silence. She had come here hoping for peace talks, but the look in those alien eyes told her everything she needed to know. This was not a negotiation. This was a death sentence being read aloud. Humans of Earth, Admiral Kexathara spoke in perfect English, his voice echoing through translation devices worn by every being in the chamber. Your species has been judged unworthy of continued existence. You have 72 hours to surrender completely or face total destruction. The holographic display above the hall flickered to life, showing Earth's solar system. Helen gasped as thousands of red dots appeared at the edge of the display. Each dot represented an alien warship, and there were more than she could count. The invasion fleet stretched across space like a wall of death, waiting to crush her home. World: 10,047 vessels, the Admiral continued with satisfaction. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Your primitive world cannot hope to resist such power. Helen stood on shaking legs. There must be another way. Surely we can reach some agreement. The alien's laughter was like grinding metal. Agreement? You speak as if you have something to offer. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your weapons are toys. Your ships are barely capable of leaving your own star system. What could humanity possibly possess that we would want? Other aliens in the chamber joined the laughter. Some had tentacles that writhed with amusement. Others had multiple heads that bobbed up and down. All of them looked at the humans like they were insects about to be stepped on. We have our freedom, Helen said quietly. We have our right to exist. Rights? Admiral Kexathara moved closer, his massive form towering over her. Rights are earned through strength. You have shown no strength. You will surrender in 72 hours, or we will take your world by force. Either way, humanity will serve the Zephyrian Empire, or humanity will cease to exist. The transmission cut off suddenly, leaving the human delegation alone in their transport ship. Helen collapsed into her chair, her mind racing. They had to warn Earth. They had to prepare defenses. But what defenses could possibly stand against 10,000 alien warships? Far across the solar system, Captain Jake Morrison was reviewing supply reports aboard the UNS Liberty when the emergency signal came through. The bridge's red alert lights began flashing as Communications Officer Amy Brooks turned to him with fear in her eyes. Captain, Priority 1 transmission from Earth Command. It's marked urgent. Jake straightened in his command chair. The Liberty was humanity's newest battle cruiser, fresh from the shipyards with the most advanced technology Earth could build. But even she was just one ship among the vast emptiness of space. Put it through, Amy. The main screen flickered, and Admiral Richardson's weathered face appeared. The old man looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. Captain Morrison, I'm afraid I have terrible news. The peace talks have failed. We're facing an invasion fleet of over 10,000 alien vessels. They've given us 72 hours to surrender. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. Around the bridge, his crew members stopped what they were doing to stare at the screen. 10,000 ships. The number was so large it didn't seem real. What are our orders, sir? Admiral Richardson was quiet for a long moment. You're the only major vessel within range of Earth, Jake. The rest of the fleet is scattered across the outer colonies. By the time they could return, it will be too late. Sir, with respect, one ship cannot stand against 10,000. I know, son. I know. The Admiral's voice was heavy with sorrow. But sometimes, one ship is all we have. Sometimes one ship has to be enough. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Jake looked around at his crew. These 800 men and women had trained for years to serve aboard humanity's finest warship. They had dreamed of exploring the galaxy, of making peaceful contact with alien civilizations, of representing the best of human achievement among the stars. Instead, they were about to face impossible odds in a battle they could not win. Chief Engineer Lisa Warren spoke first. Captain, the quantum drive is running at peak efficiency. Whatever you need this ship to do, she'll do it. Navigation Officer Ryan Cole nodded from his station. I can plot an intercept course with the enemy fleet. We'll reach them in 18 hours. Dr. Paul Griffin, the ship's medical officer, was already preparing. Sick bay is ready for casualties, Captain. Jake stood slowly, feeling the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. He thought about his wife and daughter back on Earth. He thought about all the families, all the children, all the dreams that would be destroyed if the aliens succeeded. Amy, open a channel to all decks. Channel open, sir. Jake took a deep breath. This is the captain speaking. By now you've all heard about the invasion fleet. I won't lie to you. The odds are not in our favor. 10,000 enemy ships against our one. But I want you to remember something. This ship represents more than just metal and circuits. She represents the hopes and dreams of 7 billion human beings. He paused, looking out the main view screen at the stars beyond. Our ancestors faced impossible odds before. They crossed oceans in wooden ships. They flew into space in metal cans. They never backed down when faced with the unknown. Today, we carry on that tradition. The crew was listening intently now. Jake could see determination replacing fear in their eyes. We may be just one ship, but we are a human ship. We think differently than our enemies. We adapt. We overcome. We never surrender. His voice grew stronger. The aliens think they know us. They think we're weak because we're small. They think we're helpless because we're outnumbered. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Throughout the ship, crew members were standing straighter, working faster, preparing for the fight of their lives. In the engine room, Lisa Warren was already making modifications to the ship's systems. In the weapons bay, Gunner Ben Taylor was checking every torpedo and energy bank. In the science lab, Dr. Karen Ross was analyzing every piece of data they had about alien technology. The Liberty began to change course, turning toward the edge of the solar system where death waited in the form of 10,000 alien warships. Jake knew they couldn't win through conventional tactics. They would have to be smarter, faster, and more unpredictable than any enemy the aliens had ever faced. As Earth grew smaller behind them, the crew of the Liberty prepared to write history. They would show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of when pushed to the edge. They would prove that sometimes just one ship could change everything. The countdown had begun. 72 hours until the invasion. One ship against 10,000. The fate of humanity resting on 800 souls who refused to give up hope. The real battle was about to begin. The war room of the UNS Liberty had never seen a meeting like this one. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the head of the long table, looking at the faces of his senior officers. Each person in this room commanded respect in their field, but none of them had ever planned to fight 10,000 enemy ships with a single vessel. Chief Engineer Lisa Warren spread technical drawings across the table. Her usually neat hair was already messy from hours of frantic work. "Captain, I've been thinking about this all wrong. We can't fight them like a normal warship because we're not in a normal situation." Jake leaned forward. "What do you have in mind, Lisa?" "The cargo bays. We've got 4 massive storage areas that we're not using for this mission. I can convert them into kinetic launchers. Think of them as giant rail guns that can fire chunks of metal at incredible speeds." Weapons Officer Ben Taylor looked skeptical. "That's not exactly standard military equipment." "Nothing about this situation is standard," Lisa replied. "The aliens expect us to fight with energy weapons and missiles. They've probably got shields designed to stop that kind of attack. But kinetic weapons? Solid chunks of matter moving at near light speed? Their shields might not be calibrated for that." Science Officer Dr. Karen Ross pulled up her data pad. "Lisa's right. I've been studying the recordings from previous alien conquests. Their shields are energy-based, designed to absorb and deflect particle beams and plasma weapons. But kinetic projectiles work on completely different principles." Jake nodded slowly. "How long would the conversion take?" "Give me 12 hours and I can have the first launcher ready," Lisa said. "The ship's industrial fabricators can create the projectiles from raw materials. We've got enough metal in storage to make thousands of rounds." Navigation Officer Ryan Cole was studying star charts on his own data pad. "Captain, I've been looking at the enemy fleet formation. They're maintaining a perfect geometric pattern as they approach Earth. Very organized, very predictable." "That's their strength," Dr. Ross added. "With 10,000 ships, coordination is everything, but it might also be their weakness. If we can disrupt their formation, cause confusion in their ranks." Communications Officer Amy Brooks spoke up. "I've been monitoring their transmissions. Their command structure is very rigid. Orders come from the top down, and lower-ranking officers don't seem to have much independence. If we can break their communication links, they might not know how to react." Jake began to see a plan forming. "So we hit them where they don't expect it, with weapons they're not prepared for, and try to cause chaos in their ranks." "It's our only chance," Ben Taylor said. "We can't match their firepower, so we have to be smarter." Dr. Paul Griffin had been quiet during the discussion, but now he spoke up. "What about the crew? Fighting 10,000 ships is going to push everyone beyond their limits. I can prepare medical stimulants to help with fatigue and stress, but there are risks." "We'll take those risks," Jake decided. "Amy, I want you to start psychological warfare operations. Monitor their communications and find ways to confuse and irritate their commanders. Make them angry. Angry people make mistakes." Amy smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "I can do that, Captain. I've been studying their language, patterns. Their culture seems to value honor and hierarchy above everything else. I can craft messages that will offend their pride." "Lisa, start your modifications immediately. Ben, work with her to integrate the new weapons with our targeting systems. Karen, I want you to find every weakness in their technology that you can. Ryan, plot us a course that keeps us hidden until we're ready to strike." The officers began to disperse, each racing to prepare for the impossible battle ahead. But Jake called Lisa back. "Can this actually work?" he asked quietly. Lisa Warren had been an engineer for 15 years. She had designed some of humanity's most advanced spacecraft systems. But she had never tried anything like this before. Honestly, Captain? I don't know. We're basically turning an exploration vessel into a weapon that's never been tested. The stress on the ship's structure could tear us apart. The power requirements might overload our systems. And even if everything works perfectly, we're still just one ship. Jake nodded. But it's better than surrender. Much better than surrender. Down in the cargo bay, Lisa's engineering team was already at work. They moved with urgent precision, cutting through bulkheads and installing massive electromagnetic coils. The conversion would turn each cargo bay into a linear accelerator capable of launching projectiles at tremendous velocities. Maintenance Chief Tony Lewis supervised the dangerous work of rerouting power conduits. Lisa, this is going to draw power from life support, engines, and weapons. We're talking about massive energy requirements. I know, Tony. We'll have to manage power carefully. Fire one launcher at a time, rotate the load between different systems. It'll be like juggling while running a marathon. In the science lab, Dr. Ross was deep in analysis of alien technology. Every scrap of data from previous encounters, every recording from destroyed civilizations, every technical specification she could find. The aliens were technologically superior, but they seemed to follow rigid patterns. Their ships are beautiful, she murmured to herself while studying holographic displays. Perfect engineering, flawless design, but they're all the same. No variation. No creativity. They build everything according to established patterns. That gave her an idea. If the aliens thought in patterns, if they expected certain types of attacks and certain types of responses, then the key was to do something completely unexpected. Something no rational military force would attempt. On the bridge, Amy Brooks was crafting her psychological warfare campaign. She had learned that the alien command structure was based on strict hierarchy and personal honor. Insults to a commander's competence would be deeply offensive. Suggestions that they were cowards or weaklings would enrage them. She began composing messages in the alien language, using translation software to ensure perfect grammar. The content was designed to make the enemy commanders angry and reckless. Admiral Kexathara of the mighty Zephyrian Empire, she wrote. We have heard of your great victories against helpless worlds. How brave you must be to attack those who cannot defend themselves. We wonder if you have the courage to face even one human ship in battle. Ryan Cole was plotting an approach vector that would keep the Liberty hidden until the last possible moment. The ship's stealth systems were designed for scientific observation, not military operations, but they might provide enough concealment for a surprise attack. We'll use the asteroid belt for cover, he explained to Jake. Hide among the rocks until we're ready to strike. The enemy won't expect an attack from that direction. As the hours passed, the Liberty transformed from an exploration vessel into something entirely new. The cargo bays became weapons of incredible power. The communication arrays became tools of psychological warfare. The scientific sensors became instruments for finding enemy weaknesses. But perhaps the greatest transformation was in the crew themselves. 800 people who had joined the space service to explore and discover were now preparing to fight for the survival of their species. Fear gave way to determination. Uncertainty became resolve. Jake walked through the ship, talking to his people, seeing the change in their faces. These were no longer just crew members following orders. They were defenders of humanity, ready to sacrifice everything for their home world. In the engine room, Lisa Warren made final adjustments to the quantum drive. We're going to need every bit of speed and maneuverability this ship can give us. I've enhanced the engine output, but it's going to put stress on every system. Will she hold together? Jake asked. Lisa patted the nearest bulkhead affectionately. This ship was built by human hands, with human determination. She'll hold together because she has to. The enemy fleet continued its advance toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. 10,000 warships against one. The outcome seemed certain to everyone except the crew of the UNS Liberty. They had 18 hours to complete their preparations. 18 hours to turn one exploration ship into humanity's last hope. 18 hours before they would discover if human ingenuity and courage could triumph over impossible odds. The real test was coming, and they were as ready as they could be. The first shots of humanity's desperate battle rang out in the cold silence of space as the UNS Liberty emerged from behind a massive asteroid. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered from the recoil of Lisa Warren's improvised kinetic launchers. The enemy had no idea what hit them. 3 alien destroyers exploded in brilliant flashes of light as solid metal projectiles punched through their shields like they were made of paper. The Zephyrian fleet, which had been moving in perfect formation toward Earth, suddenly found chaos in their ranks. Direct hits on targets Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, reported Weapons Officer Ben Taylor with amazement in his voice. Their shields didn't even slow down our projectiles. Jake allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before reality set in. They had destroyed 3 ships out of 10,000. It was like throwing pebbles at a mountain. Amy, broadcast our message to their fleet. Communications. Officer Amy Brooks smiled as she activated the transmission. Her carefully crafted insults in the alien language filled the communication channels, designed to enrage and confuse the enemy commanders. Attention, Zephyrian fleet. This is the human vessel Liberty. We have seen your mighty armada, and we are not impressed. Do you always need 10,000 ships to fight one? Perhaps you should call for reinforcements. The response was immediate and furious. Admiral Kexthera's voice crackled through the speakers, filled with rage. Impossible! How did one primitive ship penetrate our defenses? All vessels, target that human vessel and destroy it immediately. But the Liberty was already gone, disappearing back into the asteroid field before the alien weapons could lock onto her position. Ryan Cole's navigation skills kept them one step ahead of the massive enemy fleet using the rocks and debris as cover. They're breaking formation, Dr. Karen Ross reported from her science station. The Admiral is ordering ships to pursue us, but it's causing gaps in their advance toward Earth. This was exactly what Jake had hoped for. The aliens' greatest strength was their overwhelming numbers and perfect coordination. By forcing them to scatter and pursue a single target, he was turning their advantage into a weakness. Lisa Warren's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. Captain, I've got the second kinetic launcher online, but the power drain is enormous. We're going to have to choose between weapons, shields, or engines for each attack run. Understood, Lisa. Can you rotate the power load? I'm working on it. Give me another hour and I can have a system that automatically shifts power between the launchers. We'll be able to fire continuously, but it's going to stress every system on this ship. The Liberty burst from cover again, this time targeting a cluster of alien support vessels. These ships carried supplies and ammunition for the main fleet. Without them, the larger warships would eventually run out of resources. The kinetic projectiles flew through space at incredible speeds, invisible until they struck their targets. 4 more alien ships died in explosions that lit up the darkness. The enemy fleet's perfect formation was becoming more and more disrupted as commanders tried to respond to attacks they couldn't predict. Their communication networks are in chaos, Amy reported with satisfaction. Multiple commanders are shouting orders at the same time. Some ships are trying to maintain formation while others are breaking off to hunt us. Jake nodded. Keep broadcasting those insults, make them angry. Karen, what have you learned about their technology? Dr. Ross pulled up holographic displays, showing the alien fleet's composition. Their ships are incredibly advanced, but they're all built to the same specifications. No variation, no adaptability. They expect enemies to fight according to established patterns. What kind of patterns? Fleet against fleet. Large formations firing energy weapons at long range. Disciplined, predictable tactics. They've never faced an enemy that refuses to fight fair. The Liberty's next attack came from a completely different direction. Jake had ordered Ryan to take them above the plane of the solar system, using the ship's enhanced engines to approach the enemy fleet from an unexpected angle. This time they targeted command vessels, the larger ships that coordinated the movements of smaller groups. Without central coordination, the alien formations began to collapse into confusion. "We're actually hurting them," Ben Taylor said with wonder. "Look at their fleet movements. They don't know how to respond to random attacks." But Jake knew they couldn't keep this up forever. The Liberty was one ship against thousands. Eventually, the enemy would adapt to their tactics or simply overwhelm them through sheer numbers. "Lisa, how are those modifications coming?" "Almost ready, Captain. I've been working on something special. If I can convert the main deflector array into a massive electromagnetic pulse generator, we might be able to disrupt their electronics on a large scale." "Will it work?" "No idea. But their ships are so dependent on computer systems that any disruption might cause serious problems. The aliens were learning to adapt. Admiral Kexithara had ordered his fleet to spread out, making it harder for the Liberty to target multiple ships with each attack. He was also sending faster scout ships to hunt for the human vessel. "Captain, we've got company," Ryan reported. 6 alien fighters coming in fast from our starboard side. The Liberty's defensive systems had never been designed for space combat. But Ben Taylor did his best with what they had. Energy bursts from the ship's scientific equipment were repurposed as makeshift weapons. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. 2. Alien fighters exploded while the others broke off their attack, damaged and retreating. But Jake knew more would come. The enemy was starting to take them seriously. "Amy, any change in their communications?" "Yes, Captain. Admiral Kexithara is getting reports from across the fleet. His subordinates are questioning his tactics. Some are suggesting they should ignore us and continue toward Earth. That was the last thing Jake wanted. Broadcast another message. Make it personal this time." Amy grinned and opened a channel directly to the enemy flagship. "Admiral Kexithara, we have heard that you are considered a great military genius among your people. We can only assume your people have very low standards." The response was immediate and predictable. The alien admiral's rage could be heard even through the translation software. "That human ship has made this personal. All vessels will hunt down and destroy that vessel before we continue to Earth. I want them found. I want them destroyed. Now." The entire alien fleet began changing course, abandoning their direct approach to Earth in favor of hunting the Liberty. It was exactly what Jake had hoped for, but it also meant they were now the target of 10,000 angry warships. "Well, we wanted their attention," he muttered. "Now we've got it." Dr. Ross was monitoring the fleet's movements on her displays. "Captain, their formation is completely broken now. Individual ships and small groups are spreading out to search for us. They're no longer acting as a coordinated force." "That's good for us, but it won't last forever. Eventually, they'll reorganize." Lisa's voice crackled through the intercom again. "Captain, I've got that electromagnetic pulse ready, but using it will drain our power completely. We'll be defenseless for several minutes while the systems recharge. Jake considered their options. They had bought Earth some time, but the alien fleet was still massive and dangerous. They needed something that would cause permanent damage to the enemy's ability to fight. Karen, if we hit their fleet with an electromagnetic pulse, what would happen? Their ships rely heavily on computer coordination. A strong enough pulse might disrupt their navigation, weapons, and communication systems, but they'd eventually repair the damage. How long would repairs take? For a fleet this size? Days, maybe weeks if the damage is severe enough. Jake made his decision. Lisa, charge up that pulse generator. Amy, I want you to broadcast one final message to their fleet. What should I say, Captain? Tell them that they came here expecting to find a weak species that would surrender without a fight. Tell them they found something else entirely. The Liberty moved into position above the enemy fleet, using every trick Ryan Cole knew to stay hidden until the last moment. The ship's power systems were pushed beyond their design limits as Lisa prepared the electromagnetic pulse. All hands, prepare for electromagnetic discharge, Jake announced over the ship's intercom. This is going to be bumpy. The pulse erupted from the Liberty's modified deflector array like a wave of invisible energy, washing over the alien fleet in seconds. The results were spectacular and immediate. Ships that had been moving in coordinated patterns suddenly began drifting. Communication channels filled with confused voices as computer systems failed across the fleet. Some vessels collided with others as their navigation systems went offline. It worked, Dr. Ross shouted. Their entire fleet is dead in space. But the victory came at a cost. The Liberty's own systems were strained beyond their limits. Warning lights flashed across every console as power fluctuated wildly. Lisa, how bad is it? We're running on backup power. Main engines are offline. Weapons are down. It'll take time to get everything back online. Jake looked at the displays showing the crippled alien fleet. They had done the impossible. One ship had brought 10,000 to a standstill. But the battle was far from over. The electromagnetic pulse had worked better than anyone dared hope, but Captain Jake Morrison knew their victory was temporary. Across the vast alien fleet, emergency systems were coming online, and damage control teams were working frantically to restore their ships to fighting condition. Status report, Jake called out as the Liberty drifted silently among the disabled enemy vessels. Chief Engineer Lisa Warren's voice came through the intercom, strained but determined. Main power is back to 60%. I've got 2 kinetic launchers operational, but the pulse generator is completely burned out. We won't be able to use that trick again. Science Officer Dr. Karen Ross was monitoring the alien fleet's recovery efforts. Captain, their larger ships are getting systems back online faster than expected. I estimate we have maybe 2 hours before they're fully operational again. 2 hours to finish what they had started. Jake knew that once the alien fleet recovered, they would be ready for the Liberty's tactics. The element of surprise was gone. Amy, what's the status of their communications? Communications Officer Amy Brooks shook her head. Still mostly scrambled, but I'm picking up some transmissions. Admiral Kexathera is alive and very angry. He's trying to coordinate repair efforts, but many of his ships can't receive orders properly. Navigation Officer Ryan Cole had been studying the positions of the disabled ships. Captain, there's something interesting about their formation. The larger command vessels are clustered together in the center, protected by rings of smaller ships. That's their flagship, Dr. Ross confirmed, pointing to a massive vessel nearly 2 kilometers long. It's the nerve center for their entire fleet. If we could disable or destroy it, Jake understood immediately. With their central command ship gone, the alien fleet would be like a body without a brain. Individual ships might still function, but coordinated attacks would be impossible. Lisa, how much firepower would it take to penetrate that flagship's defenses? More than we have, Captain. That ship is a fortress. Our kinetic launchers might damage it, but destroying it completely would require something much more powerful. Jake stared at the tactical display, thinking hard. The flagship was surrounded by hundreds of other vessels, all of which would be shooting at the Liberty the moment they detected her approach. It would be a suicide mission, unless they could find another way. Karen, you said their ships are all built to the same specifications. Are their power systems standardized too? Yes, Captain. They use quantum fusion reactors, very advanced, but all identical. Why do you ask? An idea was forming in Jake's mind, desperate and dangerous, but possibly their only chance. If all their reactors are the same, then they all have the same vulnerabilities. Lisa, could you modify one of our kinetic projectiles to carry a computer? Virus? Lisa's eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting. You want to infect their computer systems, make their own reactors work against them. Exactly. If we can plant a virus that spreads through their network, we might be able to cause cascade failures throughout the fleet. Dr. Ross was already working on the concept. It's theoretically possible. Their ships communicate through quantum entanglement networks. A properly designed virus could spread from ship to ship faster than they could stop it. But we'd need to get close enough to their flagship to plant the virus, Ben Taylor pointed out. And that means getting through their defenses. Jake made his decision. We're going to ram them. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. The Liberty would have to fly directly into the heart of the enemy fleet, past thousands of weapons to reach the flagship. The ship might not survive the approach, and even if they succeeded, there would be no escape. Captain, Dr. Paul Griffin spoke quietly from his station. The crew should know what we're planning. They deserve a choice. Jake nodded. Amy, open a channel to all decks. Channel open, sir. This is the captain speaking. We have a chance to end this battle and save Earth, but it requires flying directly into the enemy fleet. I won't lie to you about the risks. We may not survive this mission. Anyone who wants to can use the escape pods. There's no shame in choosing to live. He paused, looking around the bridge at his officers. None of them moved toward the exits. For those who stay know that you're fighting for more than just Earth. You're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity will never surrender. That we'll stand up to bullies no matter how big they are. That one ship, crewed by brave people, can change the course of history. Throughout the Liberty, crew members made their choice. A few dozen people headed for the escape pods, and Jake didn't blame them. But the vast majority stayed at their posts, ready to see this mission through to the end. Lisa Warren's team worked frantically to prepare their special kinetic projectile. Instead of solid metal, this one carried a sophisticated computer virus designed by Dr. Ross. The virus was programmed to spread through alien computer networks and cause their reactors to overload. The projectile is ready, Lisa reported. But we'll need to get within point-blank range to ensure it penetrates their defenses and delivers the virus to their main computer core. How close? Less than a kilometer. We'll basically need to ram their ship. Ryan Cole plotted their approach vector. I can get us there, Captain. But once we commit to this course, there's no turning back. Every weapon in the fleet will be targeting us. Jake took one last look around the bridge. These people had followed him into an impossible situation and never wavered. Amy Brooks was ready at her communication station. Ben Taylor had every weapon the ship possessed charged and ready. Dr. Ross was monitoring alien recovery efforts. Lisa Warren was pushing the engines beyond their design limits. All hands, Prepare for final approach. This is it, people. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next few minutes. The Liberty emerged from hiding and began its desperate charge toward the center of the alien fleet. Almost immediately, enemy ships that still had working weapons began firing. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around them as Ryan Cole flew the ship through an increasingly deadly obstacle course. Shields at 40%, Ben reported as alien fire found its mark. Hull breach on Deck 7, damage control teams responding. More enemy ships were coming back online every minute. The Liberty shook under repeated hits as her shields weakened. But Lisa's engines held steady, pushing them forward toward their target. There! Dr. Ross pointed at the massive flagship growing larger on their view screen. That's Admiral Kexathera's ship. The computer core will be heavily protected, but if we can get the virus inside their network... The alien flagship was firing everything it had at the approaching human ship. The Liberty's shields failed completely, and hull plating began to tear away under the assault. But they were close now. So close Jake could see details on the enemy vessel's hull. Lisa, fire the virus projectile. The specially modified kinetic round shot out from the Liberty's launcher, traveling the short distance to the flagship in seconds. It punched through the alien ship's weakened shields and buried itself deep in the vessel's computer core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the flagship's lights began to flicker. "It's working!" Dr. Ross shouted. "The virus is spreading through their network. Look at the other ships." Across the alien fleet, vessels that had been recovering from the electromagnetic pulse began to experience new problems. Their reactors started to fluctuate wildly as the computer virus spread from ship to ship through their quantum communication links. "Amy, open a channel to Admiral Kexathera." "Channel open, Captain." "Admiral, this is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Liberty. Your fleet is finished. Order your ships to withdraw, and we'll stop the virus from spreading further." The response was filled with rage and disbelief. "Impossible! How did one primitive ship defeat the greatest fleet in galactic history? Because you underestimated us. You thought we were weak because we're small. You thought we'd surrender because you had more ships. You never understood that humans fight hardest when the odds are against us." Explosions were beginning to erupt throughout the alien fleet as the virus caused reactor overloads. Ships that had survived the electromagnetic pulse were now being destroyed by their own power systems. "Stop this!" Admiral Kexathera's voice cracked with desperation. "We surrender! Call off your weapon!" But Dr. Ross shook her head. "Captain, the virus is self-replicating now. Even if we wanted to stop it, we can't. It's going to spread through their entire fleet." Jake felt no satisfaction in the enemy's defeat. War was never something to celebrate, even when fighting for survival. "Admiral, order your surviving ships to evacuate. Get your people to safety." The bridge of the Liberty was filling with smoke from damaged systems, but her crew remained at their posts. They had done the impossible. One ship had defeated 10,000 through courage, ingenuity, and refusal to give up. As alien vessels throughout the fleet began to evacuate their crews, Jake realized they had won more than just a battle. They had earned humanity's place among the galactic community through strength and determination. The Liberty limped away from the dying alien fleet, battered but victorious. Behind them, the greatest armada in galactic history was destroying itself, defeated by a single human ship that refused to surrender. The final confrontation took place in the shadow of Earth itself, with 7 billion people watching from the surface as their single defender faced the massive alien flagship. The UNS Liberty, battered and scarred from days of impossible combat, seemed impossibly small against Admiral Kexathera's command vessel. But appearances had proven deceiving throughout this entire battle. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his damaged bridge, looking at the enemy ship that filled their view screen. The computer virus had crippled most of the alien fleet, but the flagship's advanced systems had managed to isolate themselves from the infection. Now it was just two ships, face to face, representing their entire species in a final test of will. Incoming. Transmission from the flagship, Communications Officer Amy Brooks reported. Her station was sparking from battle damage, but she maintained her post with determination. Put it through. Admiral Kexathera's image appeared on the main screen. The alien commander looked different now. Gone was the arrogant confidence he had shown at the Galactic Council. His 6 eyes burned with a mixture of rage and something else that Jake recognized as respect. Captain Morrison, your ship has fought with more courage than I believed possible from any species. You have destroyed the greatest fleet ever assembled with tactics I have never seen. But this ends now. Surrender, and I will ensure your crew is treated with honor. Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. Chief Engineer Lisa Warren had burns on her hands from emergency repairs. Science Officer Dr. Karen Ross was working at a station held together with emergency patches. Weapons Officer Ben Taylor's uniform was torn and stained with smoke. None of them showed any sign of giving up. Admiral, we've come this far. We're not stopping now. The alien commander nodded slowly. Then we finish this as warriors should. Ship against ship, commander against commander. May the strongest survive. The two vessels began their final approach, Earth hanging like a blue jewel in the background. The flagship was 3 times the size of the Liberty, and armed with weapons that could crack planets. But size and firepower hadn't decided this battle, so far. Lisa, what do we have left? Jake asked quietly. Chief Engineer Warren's voice came through the intercom, tired but steady. Main engines at 30%. 1 kinetic launcher operational. Shields are completely gone. Hull integrity is holding, but barely. Karen, any ideas about their ship's vulnerabilities? Dr. Ross looked up from her damaged console. Captain, I've been studying their flagship throughout the battle. It's incredibly well defended, but there's one possibility. Their main reactor is larger and more powerful than the ones on their smaller ships. If we could cause it to overload, the virus didn't affect their systems? They isolated their computer networks, but that also means they're running on manual control now. Their reactor safeguards might not be as effective. Jake understood what she was suggesting. Another desperate plan that might work or might kill them all. But desperate plans were all they had left. Amy, open a channel to Earth. All frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Jake took a deep breath, knowing that billions of people were listening to his words. People of Earth, this is Captain Morrison aboard the Liberty. We fought as hard as we know how, but this may be our final message. If we don't make it home, remember that we never gave up. Remember that when faced with impossible odds, humanity chose to fight rather than surrender. He paused, thinking of his wife and daughter somewhere below. We came out here as explorers, hoping to find new worlds and new civilizations. Instead, we found a test of who we really are as a species. I'm proud to say that we passed that test. We showed the galaxy that humans will defend what we love, no matter the cost. The transmission ended, and Jake turned back to the business of war. The alien flagship was closing distance, its massive weapons charging for what would surely be a killing blow. Ryan, take us straight at them. Full speed. Navigation Officer Ryan Cole's hands flew over his controls. "Aye, Captain. Collision course plotted." "Lisa, I need everything you can give me from the engines, and prepare to overload our own reactor on my command." "Captain, that will destroy the ship." "I know, but it might take them with us." The Liberty accelerated toward the enemy flagship, her damaged hull groaning under the stress. The alien ship fired its main weapons, massive energy beams that would have vaporized any normal vessel. But Ryan Cole was no normal pilot, and the Liberty was no normal ship. The beams missed by meters as Ryan threw the ship into an impossible spiraling dive. The G-forces should have killed the crew, but Lisa's modifications to the artificial gravity systems kept them conscious and fighting. "We're inside their minimum targeting range," Ben Taylor reported. "Their big guns can't track us at this distance." But the flagship had smaller weapons too, and they filled space with deadly fire. The Liberty shook as energy blasts tore through her hull. Atmosphere vented from ruptured compartments, and emergency bulkheads slammed shut to preserve what they could. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, Dr. Paul Griffin reported from sickbay. "We're losing life support in the forward sections." Jake made his final decision. "Lisa, overload the reactor. Set it for maximum yield." "Jake, no." Lisa's voice was filled with emotion. "There has to be another way." "There is no other way." "Do it now, that's an order." But before Lisa could comply, Dr. Ross shouted from her station. "Captain, wait! Look at their ship." Jake turned to see the alien flagship beginning to list to one side. Explosions were erupting along its hull as internal systems failed. The massive vessel was tearing itself apart from within. "What's happening?" "The reactor overload," Dr. Ross explained excitedly. "When they isolated their computer systems to stop the virus, they disabled their automatic safety protocols. The stress of combat has pushed their reactor beyond safe limits, and they don't have computer control to regulate it." The alien flagship was dying, killed by its own power source. Admiral Kexathera's final transmission was barely audible through the static of failing systems. Impossible. Defeated by primitives. How? The massive alien vessel exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. The Liberty, caught in the blast wave, tumbled end over end through space as her remaining systems failed one by one. When the emergency lighting finally came back on, Jake found himself floating in zero gravity. The artificial gravity was gone, along with most of their power. But they were alive, and Earth was safe. "Damage report," he called out weakly. "We're alive," Lisa's voice came through the intercom, filled with amazement. "Barely, but we're alive. Main power is gone. Life support is failing, and we're venting atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. But we're alive. Amy, can you reach Earth?" "Emergency transmitter is working. Barely. Tell them it's over. Tell them we won." As rescue ships began launching from Earth, Jake floated in his command chair and looked out at the stars. Scattered throughout the solar system were the remains of the greatest fleet in galactic history, defeated by a single human ship and 800 people who refused to give up. The battle was over, but its effects would ripple across the galaxy for generations. Word would spread to every civilization that humans had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through courage, ingenuity, and the simple refusal to surrender. Admiral. Kexthera's scattered fleet survivors would carry the story back to their home worlds. They would tell of the species that fought with such determination that they turned one ship into an unstoppable force. Other alien races would learn that humanity was not to be underestimated or dismissed. Years later, when diplomatic missions reached human space, they would come not as conquerors but as equals. The galaxy had learned a new phrase in dozens of languages. Remember the liberty. It became a warning that humans, no matter how outnumbered, would never surrender without a fight that shook the very foundations of space itself. As the rescue ships drew closer, Dr. Griffin worked to keep the crew alive with failing life support systems. Dr. Ross documented everything they had learned about alien technology. Amy Brooks sent messages of victory and hope to the billions of people waiting below. But Jake Morrison simply floated in silence, thinking about the impossible battle they had just won. One ship against 10,000, 800 souls against. The greatest armada in galactic history. Human determination against alien superiority. The war was over. Earth was safe, and humanity had earned its place among the stars through the courage of ordinary people who chose to do extraordinary things when their world needed them most. The UNS Liberty limped home, battered but victorious, carrying with her the hopes and dreams of an entire species. She had proven that sometimes just one ship is enough when it carries the unconquerable spirit of humanity itself. In the years that followed, the Liberty would be repaired and returned to service. But she would never again be just another ship. She had become legend, a symbol of what humans could accomplish when they refused to accept defeat. And in the depths of space, on worlds throughout the galaxy, the story would be told and retold. The story of the day that 10,000 ships learned to fear just one.